Welcome to the September 24th, 2019 regular meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. The meeting is hereby called to order. You please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Andrews.
Present.
Vice President Mason.
Present.
Director Mitchell.
Present.
Director Lassane.
Present.
Director Nankar.
Present.
Student Representative Tran.
Present.
Student Representative Hussein.
Present. Thank you. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Saltzman, will you please introduce this afternoon's agenda?
Yes, ma'am, and good evening to the public. Tonight's agenda contains recognition items, the superintendent's report, segment for public comments, a segment for routine business, segment for strategic progress monitoring, segment for information discussion, and upcoming agenda items. Since publishing the agenda, the following changes have been made. Item 6.01, superintendent's report was added. Item 9.06, approval of transportation agreement amendment. Number 2, the attachment was revised due to a technical error and German signatures were added. Item 10.01, summer school report. The presentation was updated to include WANIC students in the credits earned total. Item 11.01, capital bond proposal for 2020. The presentation and several handouts were revised to record the items of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
You got it. It's been moved by Director Mitchell and seconded by Director Lassane to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries and the agenda is adopted. We'll move on to section 5.0, recognition. This afternoon, we look forward to recognizing some new administrators who have joined us recently. Dr. Willard?
Launch. I'm excited to share some of our new administrators. Our last opportunity to do this was on July 2nd, so a few months ago. But since then, we've hired a few more very important people to our organization. I would like to invite Tanya Brink up here to join me. Tanya is our newest assistant principal at Hawthorne Elementary School. I want to share a little bit about Tanya. Her biggest professional impact, Tanya's service as a special educator for 9 years in Atlanta, Georgia, stands out to her. She also worked in Lake Washington. She says that this impacts her work daily, and many of the programs at Hawthorne really call for the skills that Tanya brings every day to her work. When she's not at work, she likes to read a book or spend time at her friend's house. Her friend has a horse. That must be pretty cool. Tanya's excited to be at Hawthorne because she can focus on one school, and I can tell you what an impact it has been to have a full-time administrator along with Paige Wynn, who is our new principal there, to be both there helping our students, our families, our teachers there, and I know she would say, go Hawks. So with that, thank you for being here, Tanya.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm enjoying myself at Hawthorne, and I'm excited for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Tanya. Next, I'd like to invite Sharon Hallinan. She is our new assistant principal. I can't speak, I'm sorry. Assistant principal at Madison Elementary. Her biggest professional impact, reducing chronic absenteeism rates by implementing PBIS, our positive behavioral interventions and support, which included a behavior matrix, restorative practices, which we are working on here too, social emotional learning, and specialized student groups. resulting in fewer behavior referrals. With safety being of utmost priority, she is proud of her implementation of a standard response protocol, which provided specific and standardized vocabulary for given actions while still allowing flexibility to keep everyone safe. And Sharon's been working on safety. I saw it during the lid days. I've seen it every time I'm over at Madison every day. When she's not at work, she's eager to work on her garden, observe wildlife in her backyard, and enjoy the beauty of the evergreen state. She's joining us from Nevada, and that's part of Sharon's story. In addition, she loves camping in her RV with her husband. You love camping, really? With her 2 kids, Ben and Katie, and her dog, a Bichon Frise named Mac. And then finally, Sharon is excited about working at Madison because she's enthusiastic about utilizing her prior experience as an English learner teacher to build relationships with students and families. Go Huskies. Thank you, Sharon.
Let me just clarify, it's more of glamping, because I'm in a 38-foot RV.
I get it now.
Now you get it right.
Yes, I do.
But I'm really looking forward to working with the students and staff at Madison and with the rest of the staff at Everett Public Schools. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you for your work with Amanda. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Sally, who's going to share another staff member who also gets to be part of my team also at View Ridge. So I'll hand it to Sally.
So I'll invite up Matt Arnold, who is the assistant principal at View Ridge in Silver Lake. Matt comes to us from the San Gabriel Unified School District in California, where he served as the fiscal director. He has been a middle school principal previously. He stated that his biggest professional achievement was bringing stability to a middle school that had 6 principals in 6 years. And he knew he was successful in building connections and developing trust when he started getting the students who had left to go to private school come back to his middle school. So that's a huge accomplishment. When Matt is not at work, he loves spending time with his family. He and his wife, Mindy, have 2 wonderful boys and are starting to explore the Great Northwest. And he also enjoys helping his dad with his pear orchard over in Kashmir. So I got to see a picture of him on his tractor earlier. Matt's excited about working with students because he loves, or working in Everett because he loves students. He loves watching them grow and seeing the different possibilities open up for their future. He wants to be an agent in their success, and he strives to open the doors for them. With a quick smile and a calm personality, I am certain that Mr. Matt Arnold will open many doors for the students he serves. So welcome to Everett, Matt.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you very much for the opportunity to serve the students here in Everett at View Ridge and Silver Lake. They're awesome. They're amazing already. I'm loving them, so thank you for this opportunity.
And next, Becky Clifford's going to introduce a relative of Matt's.
So while I'm introducing the last Arnold of the day, she was the first to join Everett. So Mindy Arnold, will you join me? So Mindy joins the district as the South Region Director of Special Services. She's got extensive experience and a depth and breadth of knowledge in special ed, but her last position was as a Director of Special Ed in Temple City Unified District in California. Her biggest professional impacts or point of pride to date was setting a foundation of culture of equity and providing students with special needs the opportunity to be educated with their typical developing peers. And then when Mindy is not working, she enjoys providing her children with opportunities to experience the world. And she is excited about working in Everett with so many colleagues who specialize in so many areas. And she said to us earlier that she's excited to be part of the big cog in the machine responsible for helping nearly 20,000 students and their families realize their dreams. So welcome, Mindy.
Thank you. Thank you. So clarification, it's outside, exploring the outside world. So I'm so happy to be here among the evergreens, and it's been a long time coming, and we finally got around to doing it. Super excited to be here in Everett. I'm super excited to work with all of the administrators in the South area to help build their programs to support their students with special needs and their general education peers as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
ask all of our new administrators just to come back up for a picture.
Ready?
We're ready.
Where do you want to? Oh, fair, okay.
Gonna have to get real close and squishy over in that corner. We went to some of the same schools. Close and squishy. Closer, closer. Closer. You're gonna have to double up because that's like way too long.
Okay.
2 lines. 2 lines. Otherwise, you're not all gonna fit. Oh yeah. Okay, actually, you fit there. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna take another one, and there you go. Thank you very much.
That's okay. Well, welcome to our new administrators. We are pleased they joined Everett Public Schools and part of our team. We'll move on to section 6.0, Superintendent's Report.
Okay, good evening. And before I begin, for the public, I just want to thank the Board of Directors, Budget, and HR for allowing us to have these assistant principals, because this was a need, and our Board of Directors totally listened to us when we needed this for our schools. And since I've been here 4 months as of yesterday, I can give you a good tour of the Everett town and the school district. Okay, so again, welcome to our new administrators. Just want to talk about the school visits to start. We're on the 3rd week of our visitations, and we've covered 14 schools. But I just want to sometimes throw out some things that the public needs to know and staff needs to know. And I wanted to say at Lowell Elementary today, I saw Wayne Hagan, 46 years of service to the Everett public school system. So I just want to honor him publicly, and what an amazing job. And I just want to salute staff, the regionals and the deputy, because as I visited schools, I'm seeing them in schools. Sometimes we're tripping over each other, but we're seeing great things happening. And today I was at Evergreen, and they were focused on a strong math walk as well as iReady. So good work to everybody. Want to give you some district news. We are excited again to use iReady this year. iReady is in our elementary schools and in Evergreen Middle School. First part of the program offers a diagnostic assessment, and the second part includes individual instruction pathways to fill in the gaps of student learning. The purpose of using iReady in our schools is to improve student achievement. And to our parents out there that have elementary students and our middle school at Evergreen, please understand that your students are using this. This is the diagnostic tool and to increase achievement. So please be aware of that. And I want to share with you Jack in the Bot. Okay, Jackson High School's first robotics team, 2010, Jack in the Bot took home 1st and 2nd place on Saturday in an off-season competition between 34 teams at the Peak Performance event held at Seattle Christian School. Robotic advisor Maggie Thorlson shared that with the team built 2 identical competition robots to assist the team drivers trained to make continual upgrades. They entered both robots in this event to begin training the new drivers to the upcoming competitive season. The event was a huge success, and the robotics team won 1st and 2nd place, a first in the Pacific Northwest District. Congratulations to our Timberwolves. I stopped by Maggie's classroom the other day to congratulate the students, and those students were engaged, and they enjoyed what they're doing. When students can say they enjoy robotics, what a great work for our future. So salutes to them, okay? And to our Navy Junior ROTC cadets from Everett High School. They do such an amazing job. They're often invited to present the colors at opening ceremonies of our local sporting team events. They recently had the honor of presenting the colors at the Seattle Sounders game and twice at the Mariners game. And talking to them again, they will be back at a Seattle Mariners game, I believe, for the last game of the season. So kudos to that group at Everett High School. Okay. Our Learning and Information Technology Service team is doing an incredible job making sure the one-on-one devices are in the students' hands. I want to thank Brian Beckley and his team. I saw it firsthand at Jackson High School 2 weeks ago as the students were getting their one-on-one devices, and also at Everett High School. We had a little bump in the road with some weather, but the next day, those students were getting their one-on-one devices. So salutes to our technology department and to our principals that make things happen every day. And I want to give a construction update to the public. Woodside Elementary School. School started on time with a slight modification to the parking lot to accommodate construction activities for the new building. Fencing has been placed to separate the construction areas from the school. Selective demolition of Building A is nearly complete. Footings for the new office library buildings have been poured and the foundation walls are framed and ready for concrete. And I want to share with everybody, I've been at Woodside talking to Principal Miss Betty, and I'm also working with Mr. Larry over there, our regional superintendent. And that school, despite the construction, everything that's happening, is on par. Teachers are teaching and kids are learning. And to Mike Gunn's team, as I walked the campus, I was bumping into some construction workers and saw Mr. Darcy there too at the same time. So things are getting done while students are in session. Again, staff, great job. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing good news happening in our district. Move on to section 7.0, board comments. This is an opportunity for directors and student representatives to share their activities and comments as they relate to board service. First of all, I would like to welcome Amina. I missed the last meeting, so I didn't get to welcome you then. It's great to see you here.
Thank you.
We'll start at this end with Director Mason and move
Thank you.
that direction.
I actually have no report this evening.
Okay. Director Mitchell?
Okay, I'll take up some of her time, but not all of it. I am so very thankful that we were given the opportunity to meet with Catherine Matthews to learn about iReady. I took quick advantage of that since my travel schedule right now is crazy. Had about an hour as she showed me math, English, really that we can meet our mission of teaching each student. And it was such a great opportunity because we talked about the difference between a classroom where a teacher might have some kids working independently on something, but now they're actually being assessed and there's some more information there. So it was really interesting. And so I want to take that opportunity, though, for my liaison schools to look at it. I don't have a middle school that has it, but my elementary schools to see it in action. What does a math lesson look like? What does an English lesson look like? So that's on my to-do list. This coming weekend is the WASDA, Washington State School Directors Association, for our guests, Legislative Assembly, which is where WASDA sets their legislative priorities. So for the 297 or 79, I always get that number mixed up, school districts in the state, usually about 70 or 80% of the school districts attend, send representatives, and I've invited Dr. Saltzman and Jim Young just because to introduce both of them to the process and to people around the state. But it's where we will set WASDA's legislative priorities, and it's a voting process of the whole voice. So we learn what are important for small school districts in terms of, say, security guards, where we have police officers and sheriffs. And it is sort of interesting to learn those different needs. So I look forward to seeing you both in Spokane. I'll arrive at a different day, again, just because of work priorities. And I hope this is apolitical to say that the PTSA of Everett is hosting a school board candidate forum on Monday, October 7th at Evergreen Middle School. And I really do hope that we get a good turnout so that we can have the best people serving the over almost 20,000 students of this district. So there's my hopefully apolitical statement, just encouraging people to get engaged. So thank you.
I have not had the opportunity yet to be tutored, I guess you would say, on iReady, but I'm looking forward to that. And so I believe this is one of the best opportunities so directors get to learn about iReady hands-on. I mean, we've always known it's been here, we know the outcomes, but to actually see it in process and actually touch it and feel it and that kind of work, I'm looking forward to that. And so I'm looking forward to that opportunity. That's all I have.
Cool. Tomorrow, around probably this time, between my bus ride and my train ride to the airport, I'll log on to the computer and check out the iReady webinar. I think that's around the same time that we have tomorrow. So I look forward to that education. That's all I had. Thank you.
I have no comments today. Thank you. Oh, well, today after school, I went to a club. It's new at Everett, and it's called Learn to Survive. And it's pretty much where kids go and are vulnerable, because high school students tend to be more tensed up. And this is a place where students could really talk about their feelings and talk about what's going on at home. So I'm really excited, and it just started up today, and there was about maybe 30 kids that showed up. So it was really exciting.
Thank you. I wanted to mention, too, that I did view last meeting on the video, and Hannah, I was really impressed with your comments about your internship. That sounded really valuable. It's great to hear comments like that, since we're really moving in the direction of improving those programs. I really don't have any relevant comments because I've been out of town for 2 weeks visiting my son and his wife in Taiwan. However, it was interesting to be in an Asian country and just kind of view some of the differences in education. I would say the biggest difference there is the students spend many more hours in school than ours do. Seems a little bit more intense, a little bit more based on memorization, possibly not as creative, but still, I think a very well thought out and valuable system. And I just also wanted to comment, we haven't yet approved the consent agenda, but on the consent agenda are contracts with Everett Community College and University of Washington for college and the high school, which is one of the best bargains in public education. So I hope that everyone who watches this or pays attention is aware of what a great opportunity that is for our high school students to earn college credits at a very reasonable cost, and sometimes enter college as a sophomore or a junior or whatever. It's a really great program. So we will move on now to Section 8.0, audience comments. Dr. Saltzman, are there any requests for public comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. So we will move on to Section 9.0, consent agenda. Dr. Salzman, will you please provide an introduction to the consent agenda?
Yes. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts and grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes includes items that occur less frequently but of a routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives directors time to ask staff questions or to consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of the consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding these items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as published for board approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Nonkar to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in the new business section? Hearing no request, we will proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed say no. Consent agenda is approved. Which takes us to Section 10.0, Strategic Progress Monitoring. And tonight we'll have a presentation on summer school report.
Well, I am very excited to be giving the summer school report this evening. It's a high-level overview of all of the programs that happened over the summer. So you might think of summer as a time to be out relaxing and enjoying the sunshine, but it is also a great time for our students to learn. So Dr. Willard supervised the elementary summer school, and I supported the secondary summer school this year. But I will be joined tonight by a team, Dr. Chad Golden, Mike McCarthy, and Jack Roy, who were in on the day-to-day interactions with the summer school programs. So tonight what I want to do is give you an overview of each program and the number of the participants. We're going to talk about some of the impact on student achievement and explain some next steps before our summer school programs next year. As always, our summer school program aligns to our district's strategic goals with the key performance outcomes of making sure that we get 100% of our students to graduate. We want our students to meet or exceed their college, career, and life readiness goals, provide them equitable access to rigorous course outcomes, and to meet or exceed our federal targets. It is a collaborative process, summer school, and it really takes a lot of work on everyone's part. So I want to talk about the interdepartmental coordination that helps make this happen. Food services, if you look at, they serve 27,884 lunches over the summer. I was a little bit blown away by that number. It was just so impressive. They also, a little known fact is they work with some of our community partners and serve lunches for the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club as well. So that's one of the services that they offer. So they had 5 community partners, 21 staff working, and they served lunches at 22 sites, including our summer school sites. Transportation also is very busy delivering our students. 50 routes every day that we're delivering nearly 1,200 students to summer school every single day. Our maintenance and technology departments, they coordinated the building cleaning and the maintenance and project management and facilitation of device access and how they were going to install wireless access points and get the schools ready for the one-to-one deployment in some instances when they had summer school in there. So takes lots of coordination. That's not even mentioning our finance department, who's making sure that people get paid for their efforts, and HR, who helps us get the right people hired. So again, the summer's a busy place. So we have multiple programs. I wanted to break it down by level. At the elementary level, we have our Everett Ready program. We have just our elementary program, and then we have a special education extended year program. At middle school, we have a program for English learners. We have a math pathways and math bridges. And then at high school, we have a little of something for everyone. We have advancement courses. We have credit recovery to get kids back on track. We have English learner courses. We have courses for our middle school students to help them get a leg up. We have online high school for those students who maybe can't be here during the summer but need that extra credit. And then we have the WANIC courses, which is the Lake Washington Skills Center courses that give our students some great college and career opportunities. So a large variety of courses at each of the levels. So we're going to start by talking about the elementary summer programs and extended school year. Zach Crane is at the Special Education and Law Conference. So if he were here, he'd be telling you about the 31 students who were receiving classroom support and walk-in therapy over the summer. They have to meet some eligibility requirements through special education. So they have to have emerging skills or need that skill maintenance to take place over the summer. And what they work on during the summer is academics, communication, motor skills, adaptive skills, and social behavioral skills. So we have those 31 students that continue receiving those services through the summer so that they maintain those skills. And next, Chad Golden's going to talk to you about the remaining elementary programs.
Good evening. So Everett Ready this year took place at 13 elementary schools, and those handful of schools that did not participate were because of summer construction and other things happening at those sites. We had 249 entering kindergarten students participate, and our focus is those students who English is a second language, no previous preschool experience, or are identified as low income. Our funding comes from Everett Public Schools Foundation and Title I. Here you can see our focus of 24 hours of instruction, really looking at social emotional skills, classroom, and school expectations. Parent engagement is one component that we use before the program starts, and then also engage parents during the 8 days of Everett Ready. And there on the slide, we also have our progress report that we use to communicate with parents, as well as who the teacher will be, really focusing on the 21st century skills. Moving into our elementary summer school experience, that took place at 8 locations, and students are specifically selected from all of our elementary schools to attend at those 8 locations. We had just over 1,000 elementary students participate, with about 174 elementary staff who engaged in approximately 80 hours of instruction from early July through mid-August, and students had the opportunity for free breakfast and lunch while they were at the program. Instructional focus on reading, writing, math, science, social emotional skills, some GLAD strategies, and some engaging science lessons. We reached out to several staff who participated, asking for some stories, give us a glimpse of what the experience is like. So I have a couple staff members. I want to share their stories specific to students. So the first one is Christina Allen, a teacher at Hawthorne Elementary School. She says, "We were a class of first graders moving up to second grade. All the students were English learners, 2 emergent and 6 progressing. One girl was a newcomer from Ukraine. Over the course of the 5-week session, she found confidence using her experience and used expressive language. In her interactive journal, she labeled pictures from our GLAD charts, embellished with hearts and smiley faces. She even drew a labeled diagram of the life cycle of a butterfly for me at home and brought it to me the next day at breakfast. In the 4th week, she volunteered to lead in our daily chants and participated in calling out answers after conferring with the support of our group. It was apparent the pace and group size and print-rich environment provided by summer school curriculum enabled an acceleration of her English acquisition. It was a joy to be part of this process." The second teacher from the South region, Matt Johnson, shared his reflection. "I've taught at elementary for 8 years and have been involved in the Everett School District Summer School for 7 years. As a 5th grade teacher, I volunteered to teach the 4th grade group with the knowledge that I'd have some of those students in my own class the following year. That being said, I was able to directly see the impact that summer school has on students. Time and time again, I watched my summer school kids beam with confidence at the beginning of the school year when they're able to participate and lead classroom discussions about concepts and strategies they learned over the summer. Just this year, one of my students who is an emerging level English language learner was able to share background knowledge about how organisms work together in desert ecosystems. He was referencing everything we learned from summer school curriculum. I watched him take on leadership during the group as well. I don't believe he would have such an amazing start to the regular school year if he had not participated in the summer school program. I sincerely look forward to teaching it again." Moving into our middle school programs, I'm going to highlight a little bit about English Learner, and then Mike will come up to continue with Math Pathways and Math Bridges. So our EL program took place at Eisenhower and Evergreen. Of course, the other middle schools fed into both of those sites as well. We had 71 English Learner students participate in engaging blended learning to support their language acquisition. That instruction was focused on vocabulary and comprehension through scaffolded instruction, GLAD strategies, and best practices. Mike's going to come up and continue with middle school math.
Good evening, Mike McCarthy, Director of Mathematics. So as you saw from Chad's presentation, about 71 students participated in the ELL program related to the pathways, but that made up a grand total of 280 students participating in middle school math activities with our summer program. We had 13 teachers engaging students using our rich math tasks with our new resource, the Open Up curriculum. 2 paraprofessionals also supported the program at both Eisenhower and Evergreen. We also just wanted to, again, focus and say thank you for supporting the adoption of Open Up as a resource. That was the focus of the instruction that occurred during our summer school resources. This carried through the entire summer. In our Pathways classrooms, where students were set on a pathway to increase success, students experienced gap filling, major focus areas around learning and the mathematical mindset, which is important for students at the middle school level especially. Research has shown that there is an increase in outcomes by shifting beliefs for students around mathematics, and that was one of the major focus areas. Our teachers also used research from Joe Bowler at Stanford University to bring mindset and mathematics work to that summer school program, and we'll show the results of that here at the end of the presentation. In our bridge courses, and this is new this year for summer school, instead of just teaching a remedial program, the units that students were set to miss from that skipped pathway, they were engaged in those opportunities during the summer school session. For example, the Bridge to 7-8 taught 2 units from Open Up, that resource that you supported, otherwise would have been skipped in the traditional pathway. So they also engaged in a unit called Putting It All Together from previous year's curriculum, and the Bridge to 8th in algebra taught 4 units that the students would have missed moving from 7th grade into that compacted pathway. In addition, similar to the focus on best practices, addressing those missing gaps, we'll continue to work this year to understand how the accelerated pathways have supported students in this year's instructional activities. And again, the best practices in mathematics, mathematical mindset, 21st century learning occurred with students using Chromebooks, and student discourse was also a major focus. As I shared earlier, we had some great gains in the pre-assessment to post-assessment data, especially on the mathematical mindsets. We had students that began the year, 70% of them felt like they had a certain mathematics ability in the class, and at the end, the post-assessment, that almost changed 100%. 67% of students now believe that with a growth mindset and hard work, they can be successful in mathematics. We do need to do some digging on the pre-assessment and post-assessment data used with that curriculum to address the achievement gap, but we do believe the belief gap is shrinking as a result of our summer school programming. And I will be followed by Jack Roy to talk about high school advanced programs.
Good evening, I'm Jack Roy, and I got to run the summer program at Cascade. I know this is a picture of Everett. I just want to be aware that I do know the difference, okay? We didn't want to have a picture of Cascade being painted up there while we were doing this. So we ran a program again for advancement, credit recovery, English learners online. We had a full array of online classes, and then the Wannick Skill Center offerings. We had 655 unique students taking a variety of classes, and those 655 students earned a total of 432 credits. So this was significantly more students involved in summer than we had last year, and the credits also were earned at a much greater rate. By program, this was the grade distribution. You can see it's pretty evenly distributed, fairly close between 9th through 11th grade. Our 12th grade numbers have been reduced considerably, and that, I believe, is from the work being done in the schools to catch those students before they have to take summer. And then we're seeing an increase in the 8th grade students. That number has come up, and those students are able to take courses at the high school levels to advance into further curriculum within their own schools. The programs represented here, you can see the middle school students, the EL program, online, Wannick, and credit recovery. So that's the percentage breakdown of where those students were. And this here shows a mix of the credit recovery courses, the online course. There were 44 middle school students involved, 62 EL students, and there were 111 Wannick students taking part in this whole variety of programs. This came to us, this was a parent of a student who had a son that had struggled considerably. We met. Everybody kind of got involved, and as you can see, in meeting with the student, the parent felt that they had made a connection with the staff, the office staff, the teachers, our security personnel, everybody. So there was this support network that had helped now be put in place, so this student felt that they were firmly supported. And the parents really wanted to recognize that fact, that they felt that there was somebody who was looking out for their child, taking that little bit of extra interest. We have a lot of great staff there. I can't speak enough for the security staff. This is Dave Benham in the picture, who is at Sequoia year-round. Dave is probably the least typical security person that you would meet. He's about 150 pounds, but he is probably one of the best at relationships, which during the summer, kids who struggle, having a relationship and somebody they know they can check in with, who's just asking them how they're doing, really goes a long way for helping those students be successful during that program. And of course, this is why we do it. Those 432 credits move these students closer to graduating. This is Sojourner, who was a student at Sequoia, who had struggled on and off, and based on what she had done, this is the reward for what we do. So thank you for supporting those programs. I'd like to give it to Sal.
So Dave sent me a picture that I didn't include in this presentation, but it was his steps over the campus at Cascade one day. And it was, the map was just about black because he had covered so much ground but next year I'll get that one in there for you. I wanted you to take a minute to really look at this picture. I love it because when I look at her face, I see the joy and the accomplishment and the pride that she has in meeting her goal of graduating and moving on to the next steps. And for every student in our system, it takes a little something different. But whether you're an entering kindergartner, a preschool student, whatever it takes, all the way through an English learner, trying to get a grasp of the language so that you can succeed in school. But that's what summer school is about, is driving those just-in-time interventions to help students experience success. So these are the what you heard about the programs. We talked about 1,035 elementary students, 351 middle school students, and 655 secondary students. So almost 2,200 students that were engaged in summer school programs instead of out playing in the sun all day long. So a pretty big accomplishment. Some of the challenges that we had with summer school is a lot of our district systems are getting, just like we need R&R, our district systems need an R&R and reboot and refresh, and so we weren't able to harness all those district systems. Some of the district supports that are in place during the year, there's not the consistency that we have during the school year. And we're not as clear about how to measure success. We don't have those real-time assessments during the summer school that we have during the school year as well. So our next steps kind of hinge to those things. We need to do an analysis of the long-term impacts of summer school on our students. Mr. McCarthy pointed to that when he talked about wanting to do a look at how the students who took those Pathways and Bridges classes fared throughout the year this year, so we can determine how successful the instruction was. We need to calibrate and align our enrollment processes and systems. I described multiple programs, and for each of those programs, there was a slightly different enrollment process, and we can get better at streamlining that, so I look forward to doing that. And then aligning our communication system for parent notification and enrollment. When you notify parents about summer school, there was some confusion with some of our non-English speaking families that they thought that they were enrolled and didn't realize they had to do a sign up. So then they would show up on day one and the school wasn't expecting them. So how we can get more solid on those and communicating with parents are all ways that we can just sharpen the process. Now, I will say the staff were spot on and dealt with those things quickly and professionally and made sure they were resolved, but we just want to smooth out some of those spots. So in summary, we tried to explain our components of implementing the K-12 summer programs. We provided an overview of the programs and the number of participants, and showed the impact on high school graduation. The fact that we didn't have a lot of seniors in this summer school program is a success, but we're helping those next grades stay on track. and kind of talked about some of those next steps we need to take as we prepare for next year. So with that, are there any questions?
Directors, questions? Director Mitchell?
Yeah, I just have one, a compliment from a friend of mine who's an EL para, is part of the Ever Ready program at Jefferson. She just loves that program because we had coffee on her last day. She was so excited, and it's because she says that these children are absolutely ready for kindergarten, and she gets to meet them, gets to know that she gets to be a part of their growth, and also takes the opportunity to learn their language and how to greet them in their language. And so it was just fun, and it's fun for her. And so she she thanked me for her opportunity, where I really said, thank you for what you do. But it is, I think, just when you said the staff are spot on, they enjoy these programs, and they know that their kids benefit from them. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Director Lusane?
Yes, I do want to say thank you very much for this report, and I'm glad the numbers are continuing to rise with the number of students who take advantage of summer school, and it's a benefit to them. My question is on the math programs that we had at our middle school level, and the question is regarding the bridge is acceleration without skipping content, and the pathways is addressing missing gaps. My question is it the Pathways course that monitors those students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that are struggling with math, that continue to focus in on the things that they've learned so they don't lose pace with math?
Correct. The curriculum was developed to fill gaps that existed in the previous year. So 190, I think, 2 students were identified to receive extra supports to fill those gaps. And a part of that was retaining the information that they learned previously.
Fantastic. Now, I know that we monitor when we start looking at the students that are ready for high school, 9th grade, and we monitor those students. Are we now at the point to say that of those 192 or 95 that took summer school, those may have been those students that were at a point where they're questioning whether they were ready for high school math, and so we're focusing just on those individuals, or are numbers still much greater than that?
Numbers are much greater than that. At the high school level, we're seeing students that are successful in the 30 and 40% range. So just 280 students is not enough. We need to have more.
And how do we notify parents in middle school such that they are aware of the fact that perhaps Johnny or Janie needs to take summer school so that they can at least retain the things and fill those missing gaps?
So as I understand, teachers identify students that would be eligible to take summer school. There are also newsletters that are sent out. Our math department had posted on the website, but we can do a better job to ensure that all students have access and are encouraged to attend.
And we send those notices to parents early in the year, say?
Sure.
Yeah, so all of the middle schools, they had their list of students that were eligible, and they would connect with the students, they would call home. There was lots of personal contact and cajoling, I guess, to try to get students to take the classes. So they worked really hard to recruit and get the right students in.
Great, because the numbers seem to be going up. And our hope is that once kids reach high school, that we can get more and more kids into higher level and rigorous math. And so without that background support in middle school, they may not be prepared for it. And some kids over the summer, I hate to say this, that summer slide, they forget and lose their footing. And so the hope is, what can we do to increase those numbers so that they are better prepared for high school math? The accelerated kids, I know they'll always do it. That, we know that they will stick to it and they will be ready for it. But what about those kids that are struggling? And how are we getting the word out early enough so parents know this is a great opportunity for them?
It's always one of the challenges with summer plans and things, but
Yeah.
the schools did a good job of making personal contacts to try to get people recruited for the classes.
Fantastic, thank you. The numbers are increasing. It's only going to get better, you know? Thank you.
Director Nankar?
I think it might have been slide 12, and I might have misheard too, but I think Chad, this is about elementary summer programs. I think Chad had mentioned that students were selected. Is that right? And if so, what is the criteria? How are they selected? How do you get the 1035 students?
So it really depends. So part of this is we create second and third grade plans for students who are not quite reading at standard. So we identify students through plans that we're working with throughout the school year in partnership with parents. And this is one of the strategies we use to help get them to that. Several years ago, our summer school looked different in that we provided English language acquisition classes for our ELs at one site. We'd have reading at another site. And so we've really tried to bring all those programs together to serve multiple purposes and make it more engaging. So one of those is the reading. We also provide the support for our English learners. And then we also do some support with math and really try to provide a well-rounded experience.
So when we do identify these students, how often is it that all the students that have been identified do actually come onto the program, and how much fall over or fall off for whatever reason? Do we know?
We recently, most of those that invited come. We have a few that don't, but we also create a wait list and try to get as many of those on. And that more recently has been driven by the staff we can get to do summer school. And we reach a challenge sometimes with not being able to get as many, and that will drive how many students we can invite or bring on.
Okay. And then also possibly that same answers drive how many schools we extend this program to, perhaps? Cool, thank you. The other one I had is WANIC the same as or related in any way to the Snow Isle Skills Center programs?
It's related. It's a similar program that it's run by Lake Washington, and so it has classes like biotech and CAD, and they will offer those programs for us on our campuses at no cost to us. So it's really a great and growing program that's drawing more kids. I think this is the second year we've ran it, and we had 111 students. When we do that program, we also have to offer it to out-of-district students, but 65 of the students who took those courses belong to our district.
5 out of 100.
111.
What other district was well represented?
You know, I'd have to get that information to you. I didn't capture that. And they keep the records for that, so we'd have to work with them to get that.
Question about.
Oh, Director Mason?
I had a question about the Everett Ready program. I was going to say, wait, don't sit down, but sorry. We currently 249 taking advantage of that, and I think you mentioned 13 sites. Or
Yes,
so.
last year we had 247 students at 14 sites.
Okay, I was close.
Yeah, so this was the fourth year that we had offered the experience, and we started it at 2 sites, and we've gradually grown it. The obstacle we ran into this past summer is we had several sites doing a lot of site work.
Okay. That was sort of my question is, what is the need out there? And are we intentionally growing into it slowly so it's...
That's part of our conversation right now is what could it look like? Schools would tell us that every student should have the opportunity to come in and learn about the school and classroom expectations and that culture.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Student Representative Tran, did you have questions?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for the very insightful presentation. I actually got a chance to meet some of the kids who were at Hawthorne's elementary summer program. through the SNAP Ed program from the health district. And it really showed how enthusiastic kids are to learn about anything, because nutrition isn't something that is covered in elementary school, and they're really eager to learn about physical education and like nutritional values. But it leads me to the point of how important a growth mindset is in developing confidence for kids of all backgrounds, whether it be English learners or special education students or just regular academically successful students at any grade level or age level.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Hussein, did you have comments?
Oh, my question was already answered. It was about the criteria for choosing kids for who to go to summer school. So,
thank you. A lot of my questions have been answered too. I had questions on the WANIC program just because we have been focusing on career-connected learning. So you said those classes did occur at Cascade High School, and we had about 65 students. What sort of credit are they able to earn during the summer course?
So they earn typical high school credit. The little trick is it gets transcribed at Lake Washington, and then they have to send that over, and then we have to transcript it here, which would create a little delay for us to get all of the information, but just a technicality for us to work through. But it's a great opportunity for students. Digital forensics was a real popular course too.
What was it?
Digital forensics.
Oh, yeah. So does Snow Isle offer summer courses? Do you know? Oh.
So our membership at WANIC allows us to offer summer school courses on our campus. Snow Isle does not allow for that, and that was one of the reasons we had interest in joining WANIC as a second skills center. And or if Snow Isle does, it's a very small number, 1 or 2 courses, and this just gave us a whole bunch of different opportunities. Just real briefly, we were able to offer biotech, a CAD, a computer-aided design course, a DigiPen video game programming course, digital forensics. Like Sally said, we're able to offer health in the summer, human body and behaviors, another DigiPen course. So it's just a real portfolio of opportunities for students to take summer school courses for free on our campus.
Yeah, they'd be interested in those courses. Would be a big draw, I would think, right? I liked the term belief gap. It's a new term to me, but it's very relevant and so important to focus on belief with the kids. And then just the comment about the security guard and the relationships he created with students. I would have to believe the success of summer school is really kind of based on the relationships that can be built with the smaller classes and more of the individualized instruction. So we're really fortunate to be able to offer these programs. I'm realizing after many years on the board, I'm not really sure how we fund summer school. And it's probably a variety of sources, but it's wonderful. And I'm thinking with our increasing credits to graduate, we'll probably have increased need for summer school moving forward.
Point of interest, we will share that with you. But the security person that was at Cascade, who's at Sequoia, is a master of relationship building with students. I've seen him in action, and Dave, he's incredible. And that's really what makes this happen. But also, when you talk about all the summer school programs to our public, the final product is the resiliency of the students graduating. Okay? And many times in public education, we're quick to be judged on everything we do, but the resiliency of those students is a measure of success, not only here, but nationwide, how those kids overcome to graduate. So you saw that picture today on the slide, but all the other students that were there that night represent many students across the country that have to just go that little extra, and everything they've gone through to walk across to get their diploma is a massive to all our educators, K through 12.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a very informative presentation and successful summer school. All right, we will move on to section 11, which is capital bond proposal for 2020. This is informational only. We won't be making a decision this evening. The recommendation will be brought to us next meeting, but Mr. Gunn, you have a wonderful presentation this evening.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so tonight our topic is a 2020 capital bond proposal and draft resolution number 1216. As mentioned, no action will be taken tonight. Tonight is rather the time for you to sit back to listen to our presentation and some comments that we'll have from some of the committee members, and to ask questions and discuss the bond proposal among yourselves. If all goes well, as we anticipate, we will bring a proposed bond resolution back to you on October 8th for consideration and approval. We have with us tonight a number of committee members who will be giving comments during the latter part of my presentation, as we did at the summer workshop. So the objectives: briefly review the presentation, the capital planning activities and information pertaining to the development of the future capital bond proposal, and then to actually review the resolution itself. And we're getting very specific now. Resolution number 1216 in the amount of $317.4 million for placement on the April 28th, 2020 special election ballot. We have also attached to the board docs system 5 documents, and I'm going to briefly mention those. The first one is the presentation itself. The second one is the draft resolution 1216. That's the formal legal document that is necessary for the board to approve, that will then be turned over to Snohomish County, and then we can then place the bond proposal on the special election ballot. We also have attached to board docs a list of all of the projects in this bond proposal, along with fairly detailed descriptions and the rationale for each project. We have also prepared and attached a list of the work in this bond proposal that would occur at each location, at each site throughout the district. It's one of the ways that we're trying to have you see that the bond proposal really does provide something for really every site in the district. And then also, there are 13 preliminary site plans that we've attached to the board docs system as well. All of that is in there for your review. So some of this information you've seen a number of times, so we tend to update our slides as needed, and this slide has been updated a little bit, but it basically shows our bond and levy cycle from 1990 to 2030. You can pretty much read the key to see what the story is. Past bonds every 4 to 8 years over the last 30 years or so. I did happen to count up since 1990, just on the capital bond row, we have proposed bonds 10 times, passed them 5 times. So 50% success rate over the last 30 years for our bonds. You can see the capital levies, they're batting 1,000. And educational programs and operations levies, those are almost batting 1,000. In terms of the success rate, we failed those twice and then passed them on the second run through, second time. You can see to the right here, we have a big question mark. That is the issue under consideration right now for 2020. Just to take a look at 2022, we know at this time that is when our capital levy for technology and our educational programs and operations levy would both expire in 2022. So we would fully expect to be running those again. That is the time that we had a couple years ago anticipated running a bond as well. So, certainly everything to the right over here with the question mark or the zeros are to be determined. But right now, we're focusing on 2020. Recent capital bond elections ran them a bond twice in 2014, failed twice, passed one in April of 2016, failed one in February of 18. Recent board actions leading us up to tonight. In June of a year ago, the elementary boundary revisions were approved by the board. In August and then in September, 2 committees were formed, a high school boundary committee and a capital bond planning committee. The high school boundary committee work has been completed and the board has adopted the boundary changes for the high schools. What is pending, of course, is the approval of the recommendation from the capital bond planning committee. So the Capital Bond Planning Committee was established in November last year, charged with developing a recommendation describing the scope and size of a future capital bond. The committee met 6 times from November of 18 to June of 19. We presented the report to you at your August workshop. And then at a very high level, I just wanted to summarize the messages that I saw contained in the committee recommendations and having been at all of the meetings. So basically, there are those 6 bullets, something in the Capital Bond Planning Committee recommendations, something for everyone across the system. High school boundary changes provide temporary relief. And we'll go into that a little bit, quite a bit more. A number of comments, I think, will come up about that as well. Elementary additions rather than new schools to save money. The recommendation does not include a new high school or a new elementary school. It includes 36 elementary school classrooms in 8 different additions at 8 sites across the district. Certainly less money than building new schools. Provide facilities for STEM and career pathways. There are 4 or 5 major projects that include that. Replace or repair aging schools and building systems, a very common theme in our bond program. And then this one is, they talked a lot about this. Do not go for the maximum amount that you could and still maintain a stable tax rate. You'll see that in one of the slides that it says very clearly that that we could have gone up to $400 million on a bond proposal and still been able to achieve a stable tax rate. And of course, this recommendation is quite a bit less than $400 million. So it's something the committee did intentionally. All right, guiding principles, I'll just briefly mention them. Consider in some manner the key themes raised by the community over the preceding time period. I actually been involved in this conversation off and on with the community for about 5 or 6 years, so there's a lot of input. We provided that to the committee. Enrollment, consider the need for new classrooms and property to house student enrollment growth. Aging facilities, consider the need to modernize our schools and building systems because they're aging and need that. The educational programs, then consider the need to upgrade existing buildings to accommodate new or enhanced programs. Safety and security, certainly a growing, emerging theme. It's not even emerging, it's right there, and it's getting bigger all the time. Technology, consider the need to provide new, enhanced, or replacement technology, infrastructure, and equipment. And then property taxes, the big one. Consider the variables affecting future tax rates, the difficulties in predicting them, and then the sensitivity the community has to increasing them voluntarily. It can be an uphill climb. All right, so the committee heard and read a lot of information about the needs we have for our facilities, and those are the 5 major categories. I won't go into them all. I will cover new schools and property, or new school needs, just pretty closely in the next couple of slides, just because it is such a big part of our conversation. The picture you see there was one of the documents, the cover sheet for one of the documents we provided to the committee. In total, there were almost 300 pages of information that we provided to the committee. It's all on the district's website as well. So you can go in there and see everything that we gave them and that we talked about. One of those was a project description and cost estimates, detailed cost estimates for all the projects that that our consultant, the Dyckman Architects, had prepared going into the committee process. So there are many more projects in this information than the committee ended up selecting. It's just a tremendous amount of information. So now let's go to the growth. You've seen this slide many times. We update it every year. Just showing the growth since 1951. Enrollment projections, this shows the next 10 years, what we expect. And a couple of themes here you'll see. You'll see an echoing. What happens at elementary happens at middle school. So there's a kind of a low point in 2019-20 at the elementary. It hits the middle school 4 or 5 years later, and then high school right in here 4 or 5 years later. And what you see at the elementary level, the growth that you're seeing after 2020 is reflected at middle school beginning in about 23, in high school beginning in about 27 or so. And that brings up a big observation here about high school. Right now we're in 2018-19. We will be growing at the high school level out to 2023. And then from then until about 2026, fairly flat, maybe 27, and then it starts growing again to reflect that theme that will be echoed from the elementary and middle schools. So the growth after 2027 or so will just continue matching what happens at the elementary level. It's that echoing. So the way to think about it in terms of high school, the need for a new high school. We, in the boundary committee, we showed the committee all this, and the committee basically looked at the idea of building our boundary change recommendation around the high point of enrollment over the next 10 years, which is the year 2023. So the boundary changes that you recently approved and the numbers and all the analysis about portables needed for the new high school and all that were based on the 2023 year. So, because the idea is if you can live with the conditions that exist in 2023, then you're actually good out to the year 2028. So in other words, right now you can look at the next 10 years and say, let's build our recommendation for the year 2023, and then we're actually good out to 2028. That's going to be the foundation for basically the observation by many of the capital bond planning committee members saying that the boundary revisions gave us some time on the need for a new high school. It didn't make the need go away. It just gives us some time in terms of relieving the congestion to some degree at Jackson High School. That's what it did. Okay. All right. So a 10-year increase of just under 1,700 students. We now actually are better able to predict what our 2019 October 1 count is. Just a reminder, whenever we show you enrollment numbers, we are typically talking about October 1, because that's our milestone date every year that we look for. So this is September 24th or 3rd today. We haven't yet hit October 1, but we're coming up on it pretty close. So I'm going to tell you right now what we think we're going to be on October 1. We came in under projections. We believe we will, as of October 1. We will be about 126 under that 20,262 right there. That still represents an increase over last year. So we are still growing. We predict, if everything happens the way we think it is over the next couple weeks, that we will still show an increase of about 57 students over last October 1. I will say that in the past couple of years, we've been so accurate that, we've been within single digits off of the actuals. That is amazingly accurate. This is really accurate, to use a descriptor there. It's about 0.6% of the total to be 126 under projection in a total enrollment of 20,262. So it's still very accurate. It's just not single digits anymore. We are, at the elementary level, we're going to be down, we think, by about 23. We're going to be up a little bit at the middle school level. We think about 16, and down at the high school about 119. So gives you kind of a better picture of the projected 2019 numbers here. So generally, the trend is still holding true. And of course, we're looking in this chart out for 10 years, which is still a ways out there. All right, this slide, it just shows, reminds everyone that the growth, most of the growth that we're seeing, that we have seen in the last 15 or 20 years has been in the South End. We're planning to grow in all regions, at all grade levels throughout the district over the next 10 plus years. This slide actually shows in the red box here where the future high school site is, plus the Tambar Creek Elementary School site, and then yellow is where the future elementary 19 would be. There is actually another block of property we own right about there that is the site we expect for a future middle school. So we have elementary, middle, and high school sites in the South End right now. We're still buying some of the property around that elementary, though, as you know. All right, so this projection goes out to 2035. So it goes out about 16 years from now. Over that 16-year period, we have, look at the 3 bullets. The first one is elementary school classrooms above building capacity, above permanent building capacity. We have a need during that 16 years out to 2035 for 4 elementary schools. We can achieve that, we can satisfy that need, I guess, by building. We have 4 options. Option 4 is to build 4 new schools and no additions. And you can, and then if you want to avoid the need for portables, then you build 4 new schools. That's one option. Next option, and that's probably not very feasible, by the way, as you can probably guess. The option 1 is that you build 85 classrooms in additions and 1 new school and 0 properties. And you would have 0 properties because we're already buying elementary number 19. So you can build 1 new school, not have to buy property, or you can build 4 new schools and have to buy 3 properties. Or you can build a combination of new schools and additions. The whole point is we're going to need 112 new elementary school classrooms for 2,464 students over that 16-year period. All right. There are some assumptions there, obviously, that you have to make assumptions anytime you're doing predictions like this. During that 16-year period, we also believe that we will need, from our projections, a new middle school capacity of around 825 and a new high school capacity of 1,500. So that's a snapshot of the need for new schools or new space at all 3 grade levels until out through the year 2035. By the way, we picked that 2035 because that's when the state's long-range population forecasts are generated from. I believe they're coming out soon with the 2045 projection, but right now that's as far as they go. Okay, so recent high school boundary revisions. I'm going to focus on this for just a minute. A reminder, the area in green here is currently in Jackson's area. It will be moved in a phased implementation process. The students that live there will eventually go to Cascade High School. The purple block area is currently in Cascade. It will, over time, end up attending Everett High School. we went through a lot of discussion about this. This is a summary slide of that. Jackson High School, the change reduces Jackson's enrollment out in the year 2023. Remember that I talked about the targeting that certain specific date. At that time, Jackson will have a reduction of 411 students because those students will be moved to Cascade. And the need at Jackson for portables will go from 27 to about 10. Cascade. It turns out that the changes to the boundaries move about as many kids into Cascade as it's moving out of Cascade. So the net effect at Cascade is fairly minimal. Might need maybe one more portable than it would have otherwise. Everett High School is where you see the big increase. By 2023, they will be right at and a little bit over what we believe their capacity to be. We are already starting conversations with the staff at the school to help them understand how they can do that, how they can accommodate all those new kids and new staff without major expansion of their capacity. And it's going to be an ongoing conversation. Every year, I think we're going to need to continue that. They haven't really had to use their permanent building capacity very efficiently, probably since Cascade was opened in, I think, 1961. Okay. It also means that all three high schools will be 430 to 550 students over what we consider their optimum size. I just told you about the enrollment projections expected at each school related to their capacities. Now I'm going to relate it to optimum size. Optimum size is 1,500. It's been reinforced every 2 years. We go through a process and bring it to you and talk to you about our capital facilities plan. And it still says that the optimum size for high school is 1,500 students, based on the kind of the right size to generate enough money to staff it the way it should be staffed and provide the programs and services without being too big. So if you look at it that way, by 2023, each of those three high schools will be between 436 and 552 students over that optimum size, all three high schools. So the bottom line is, in big orange letters, the recent high school boundary revisions do not eliminate the need for a new high school. They temporarily mitigate the effects of the growth at Jackson High School. And in the words of some of the committee members, give us some time. This slide was really, it's an excerpt from the report of the committee on this topic. And I won't read each one, verbatim. I think you can see the intention, the meaning of those comments and how it relates to what I've been talking about. How the boundary revisions really did change the committee's mind about the need for a new high school. I related the story that in the first meeting of the committee, the facilitator, Jim Dugan, asked the committee members for just an informal show of hands, how many of the committee members right now would say that the bond recommendation should include a new high school, and most of the committee members raised their hand. The majority of them did. By the end of the process, over the course of the meetings, it ended up in the final vote, I think 2 members voted out of the entire committee for keeping a high school on the bond. And this was some of the questions that we were asking them to answer to describe to you and to the community what happened during that transition. Why did they change? And this is how to explain that. Now we're going to switch to another topic. This is a slide showing recent survey results from 3 different surveys that Strategies 360 and Washington STEM and Washington Roundtable conducted. I've summarized it all there, and there would be a lot of caveats if I put a lot of other statistics there, but this, we tried to generalize what the majority of the survey results indicated. And as you can tell, it strongly supports the idea of enhancing, expanding, and building STEM career-connected pathways in our schools. So without going, into this any more than, because I'm sure that you've read through this and have understood this from a lot of conversations recently anyway. This slide is similar to what you saw in the 2018 bond when we had a new high school to add to this. This has taken that high school number 4 career pathway out of the slide and shows you the remaining 3. The aerospace and advanced manufacturing, certainly a natural for Cascade High School being physically so close to the biggest employer in the region. Boeing and Everett High School medical and career pathways, certainly there's a hub of medical facilities in the north end of our district, and then Jackson High School information and community technology. That seems like another natural too, with its proximity to some of the high-tech businesses on the east side. So I'll go on. This slide, you've seen and heard about this many times from Mr. Moore, and I know he could do a tremendous job. I'm going to try to simplify this and say flat tax rate accommodates a $400 million, plus or minus $1 million bond in 2020. The committee was told they could recommend a bond of $400 million, maybe even more if they wanted to push it. And we could still structure over time and achieve, we think, a flat or stable tax rate of $4.87 per thousand. If you have any questions on that, I'm sure Mr. Moore can answer those, but this is kind of a summary. The chart shows really kind of the different components that go into the ultimate total of the tax rates for school-related purposes. Now, I have 3 slides that show the proposed projects. Just real quickly, on the right-hand side, you'll see which region those facilities are in. Again, I have an attachment to the board docs in the system that shows in more detail what the bond projects would be at each location. But this gives you a good idea, north, central, south. First project is add 36 new elementary school classrooms at 8 schools. Second major group of projects, 3 elementary schools to replace them instead of modernizing them. So basically it's kind of the View Ridge Elementary School model. Build a new school on the field, move into the new school, tear down the old field, the old building, and then build new parking lot and new playground. That's the model for Madison, Jackson, and Lowell. I was just out at Madison this morning, and that's an amazing building that's lasted a long time, but it is really worn out. The committee, by the way, went on a tour, and those, among other schools, they visited those 3, and I think that really helped elevate the need, the perception of need to replace those instead of just fixing them up. The next group of projects, modernize and upgrade schools. This is where we get into a lot of the STEM and career-connected pathway facilities and programs. Modernize and expand Cascade High School Science Building for science classrooms and aerospace and advanced manufacturing pathway. That's a mouthful. It's very descriptive. It basically will fully modernize the science building and build an addition of about 5,000 feet to be used as in essentially a replacement of the auto shop. The auto shop, we need to basically replace that building anyway because it doesn't comply with ADA requirements. So this is the best time to do it. We could actually tear down the, to replace the space used or taken up by the auto shop and get money for it instead of modernizing it. It's kind of complicated, but one of the, when we do that, one of the certifications we have to make to the state is that we will not use that space for instructional purposes for like a 10 to 15 year time frame after that. So it means we'll have to figure out a different use for that building. The next one is modernize Everett High School vocational building for medical and health careers pathway. This project will complete the work to fully modernize that building. We've already secured it's approximately $4 million to begin implementing and equipping a career-connected pathway at that school in that building, and this project here would complete that work. Upgrade 6 classrooms at Jackson High School for Science and Information Communications Pathway. It's just what it says. It takes 6 classrooms there and helps to create that career-connected pathway program at that site. And then modernize classrooms and cafeteria at Everett High School auditorium building. If you read the description for that project, you'll see and understand a lot more about it. If you can imagine that entire building, we're going to modernize everything except the civic auditorium. It's the cafeteria, it's the 3 levels where the cafeteria is, and then it's the classrooms on the north and south side of the civic auditorium. It's every place there except for the actual civic auditorium. We just don't have a name for that building. I talked to the principal out there and asked him if he had an idea, and he had some, but nobody in the community would have understood that was what we were talking about. So we just left it, just have a description of it right there. Modernize and upgrade schools, continued the cafeteria and kitchen at Cascade High School. This is really to redo, fully modernize or remodel the kitchen cafeteria area, and then expands the seating of the cafeteria into the classroom space on the south side of the cafeteria. And then upgrade interior and exterior finishes at Everett High School Science Building. This is not a full modernization, it's a partial. So we try to be very descriptive in the documents that we attach so people don't assume it's a full modernization. You can imagine for us, for that low amount of money, you can only do the finishes. And we're actually going to be replacing the, at the main entry, the glazed roof structure there, and all the glass, it really heats up that entry, and I don't think it sheds water very well. And we're going to do some other work there. The next category of projects is to continue to repair, upgrade, modernize our building systems, HVAC systems, roofing and flooring. Pretty self-explanatory on that. The improved safety and security, we thought a lot about this, and we see this topic as being kind of a continual item on future bonds and levies. I think we're always looking to try to figure out what next to do to help improve safety and security around our district. So this takes a run at doing some more work at Everett High and Cascade High School to help those schools kind of catch up with some of the other schools. It also upgrades our Sonatrol security systems. We may even, in fact, be looking at a different vendor in the future if this bond passes. Some more security fencing, replace lock sets and keying systems so that the teachers in the classroom don't have to go outside of their classroom to lock the doors. So in a lockdown situation, they can do it from the inside. That's been a point of conversation for quite a while. And then to expand the parking lots at 2 elementary schools that desperately need it. Those 2 schools, Jefferson and Emerson, are also 2 schools that would be getting additions as well. So we would combine those projects together. Improve school sites, we have 3 items there. Replace aging playground equipment at 8 elementary schools. Synthetic turf and track at Memorial Stadium football field. And then to renovate Cascade High School softball field and dugouts. That last item the committee also looked at. And I think understood from our tour of that facility that softball field is the low point of the whole field complex. All the water drains there, and it just doesn't go anywhere really right now. So we would be installing a synthetic turf field at that location, similar to what we did in the baseball stadium here. And then it just has a lot better system to take the water off of the surface and put it underground and get rid of it without being soggy all the time. Pardon me? Also, upgrade technology infrastructure, electrical systems district-wide, and then modernize student information system. Again, we see technology as a common item on future bond packages. So we have a proposed resolution 1216, a bond proposed amount of $317.4 million. We finance our debt service by property taxes over 15 to 20 years. And we typically sell those bonds in 3 or 4 increments of 50 to 75 million a piece, usually, as needed for the course of construction. And then we anticipate, if the state continues to fund this school construction assistance program, that we would be getting up to $36 million additional. And we would be able to use that extra money. That would come in, by the way, after we were done with our modernization projects. We bill after we spend our money. So we would get money maybe 4 to 6 years into this program. And we could do the same types of projects or expand the projects that we've listed in the bond proposal. And then, as always, the supermajority of 60% is required for voter approval. Our election dates that we're looking at right now, or election date, is the April 28th election. Measures are due February 28th. And this is the schedule. You've seen it many times. The star is where we are right now. And it would show that the election date on April 28th, and then what happens between now and then. And then this is a specific list of dates. I wanted to point out the ballots are mailed out on April 9th for the election of April 28th. So assuming that you approve on October 8th, the information timeline that we have to get information out to the community would be from then until about April 9th, which is when the ballots are mailed out. We also plan to have a workshop with you on October 15th related to a lot of this information. So I have, I'm sure that I've taken more than my time scheduled for this presentation. It's in a sense, a culmination of, as I said, 4, 5, 6 years worth of work. So if we still have time, I would like to offer 2 or 3 minutes per for each of, I think, maybe 3 committee members to come up and make some comments.
I think this topic warrants extra time if needed. It's huge and big decision, so I wouldn't worry about the time.
Okay, so in no particular order, I would ask that Shelley Henderson come up. Shelley, please. And make your comments to the board.
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. I just wanted to share a couple comments. I came in, chatted with you a little bit at the board study session.
Can you introduce yourself and your background?
Yep, Shelley Henderson. I'm a community member, lived in Everett School District for 15 years. I've worked in a couple different school districts and capital projects, K-12 for the last 24, 25 years. So familiar with the whole school construction business in K-12. So some of the things in the committee that was important to us, well, me and some other people as well, is what was talked about before about what was the total amount of the bond, which kind of is the overall of what can fit into the bond, and being respectful of the tax rate given the current climate and all the changes that we've seen go on with taxes lately, especially in regards to K-12. So it was important for me personally to keep it at or definitely below what the current tax rate was, just given that we've had some bonds that have failed in the past, and you never know exactly why they fail, but a safe assumption is sometimes people don't like taxes on their houses. So lowering that, I think, was important to me, and which that helped influence some of the decisions and prioritization that I made. I went on the school tour visiting some of the elementary schools and high schools here in Everett School District, and it really showed the importance of some of the needs for the replacement of the 3 elementary schools that we talked about, just the aging condition of the schools and also the operational needs of those schools and them not being ideal for elementary schools. And I prioritize the addition of the 36 classrooms across the district over one new elementary school, because I feel that spreads it throughout the district and geographically puts additional classrooms all over your district. And maybe that could slow down some rebounding if needed. And it just adds capacity in multiple areas. Even though the growth is concentrated in the south, there's still growth elsewhere. So I thought that was a good choice. And also when it came down to it, looking at the total package, the new elementary in the south end just bumped it up a little too far out of my comfort zone for what I wanted to support. And in the south end, we just opened that beautiful new school that I drive by all the time on the way to see my nephews. And so hopefully that's helping the south end right now. The high school, I was one of those people that raised my hand on the first day that absolutely we need a new high school in the district. I don't understand why we're voting that down. And throughout this whole process of seeing all the need that Everett School District has and fitting that into a responsible bond package, I couldn't vote for the high school for this bond. The boundary committee for your high schools did a great temporary fix for the high schools and adjusting students for the next 4 years that will hopefully do what it says and help all those high schools with their capacity issues. So I know it's kicking the can down the road a little bit. I think we're going to have this high school discussion again in 4 years. But I just think for this particular bond at this moment that Everett really needed these other things more critically than a new high school at this point to get them through the next 4 years and to be responsible with voter dollars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Justin Tidwell. I am in the construction community. So I've been in Washington State my whole life. My part of my responsibilities is looking at construction projects and determining their viability for my company, other companies, things like that. My family lives about 10 minutes walking, my son's pace, which is super slow, from Jackson High School. So we're very close to that high school. He will be attending that high school when he turns 18. So when I went to the Boundaries Committee, I was fully intending to vote yes for the high school. I want the best for my children, and I think everyone can attest to that for their own children as well. And my wife is also a public school teacher. She's a third grade elementary school teacher. And so the public school system to me is very important. And participating in the process with Mike Gunn and the rest of the members was extremely eye-opening. We were presented with as much information as you could possibly pour through. We had certain guidelines, and some of those guidelines were making things equitable for people. And that kind of really struck a chord in me. My son is going to grow up fairly privileged, whereas I know that there's other children out there who may not have that opportunity. Looking at the different schools, looking at the different state that they're in, the learning environment is definitely not the same in some of the North End schools as it is in the South End schools. I think, the environment where the kids are sitting in a classroom for an hour to 8 hours, however long that they're there during high school times or elementary times, that's their environment. When they look back at their life, growing up, they're going to think about those things. I think that not doing the high school actually affords us a great opportunity to improve the environments of children in the North End. And I stand by the bond wholeheartedly now to not approve the high school and to move forward, creating a better environment for our children in the North End District. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Jane.
Hi, my name's Jane Armfield. I have not lived in the Everett School District for a long time. I've lived here 6 years, and I obviously didn't go to school here. I'm a parent. I have 2 elementary school age kids. We live in the central zone, but my children are very fortunate to attend one of the south area schools. When I came onto this committee, I'd worked with other committees with Mike, and I was very aware of the high school overcrowding problem. I was one of the ones who thought that I would be voting to put a high school on the bond, but that's not the way that I voted. I think the fact that we've had a high school on 2 prior bonds and they have both failed is information we shouldn't ignore. And when the boundary changes were recommended and then adopted, I felt that we need to give them a chance. We need to see if they can be a reasonable mitigation, at least for the short term. I was one of the people that went on the bus tour, and one of the things that you must take on when you join a committee like this is not to represent what's best for yourself, but to represent what's best for the community. I was very surprised by the schools that I saw, the 3 elementary schools. They've obviously served the community well for a long time, but the kids that attend those schools are some of the youngest in our district, and they deserve to be in schools that are built to modern safety standards. They deserve to be in schools where they know that they're going to get a school lunch, where their cafeteria is reliable enough to provide them a meal. And also where they are going to have heating. We learned of one school that had a heating issue last winter, and the kids were sitting in the cold for 3 weeks. I think the other thing that we learned through this process is there's a lot of things our community expect. They expect good, solid educational programs. They expect career-connected learning. They expect STEM learning, and we need to have buildings that can support those things. And some of the high school buildings we saw, the life science buildings, just can't do that today. So we need to address those things. I also like that this bond is putting forward a lot of modernisation at all different levels, at the elementary level, the middle school level, the high school level, and also across the district. I was one of the people that voted for Elementary 19, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First up, I think it's important, if we want to appeal to all of the voters in our area, that they look at the bond and see that it's equal across the district. And I think this one may look just a little too top-heavy to the north. We have a lot of voters in the south and a lot of funding that could come for the south, and I think having Elementary 19 would strengthen that. And my second concern is the tax rate. I certainly don't want it to go up. I think putting it down, as in the proposal we put forward, is attractive in the short term. It does lower the tax rate, but I think it's inevitable that we will need a new high school. And if we lower the tax rate now and have to increase it later on, that's going to make it so much harder to get the voters to pass a bond in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes our presentation tonight.
Thank you. Before we have discussion with the directors, on behalf of my board colleagues, I want to just extend another thank you to the committee members for their hard work. We understand how difficult that work is. We've been there, done that. I think the seeds for the whole committee were set at a National School Board Conference 2 years ago. I'm not sure. We went to a presentation and heard where another district had taken that path of letting community members come in and just look at it with fresh eyes and gave them all the latitude to come up with a package. And I think it was a really great process. And thank you for coming and sharing your individual thoughts tonight. It's very helpful to hear the reasoning behind the final recommendation. So with that, we'll open it up for discussion. I know we've discussed this at length at our board retreat earlier this summer, but do directors or student representatives have further questions or comments? Director Mason?
I have some observations that came from tonight's presentation and community comments. I also have a couple questions. So I'm going to start with my questions. Why do you, I know the last several elementary school modernizations and North Middle School have become what we call new and lieu. Why are we choosing that path versus taking a school that already exists and modernizing it? And I assume I have assumptions, but I'd just like to hear you express why we do that.
You do that when the cost of modernizing or upgrading the school, there is a technical threshold of about 80%. When you exceed that, then it just makes sense to tear it down and build new. In reality, though, those buildings functionally just don't work very well. I'll take Jackson Elementary School as an example. There are 5 horizontal levels in that building. It does not comply with ADA. We modernized it in about 1990, 91. And at that time, ADA had just come into existence, and we could not, short of, tearing the building down, we could not make that building comply, just because it would have meant tremendous expense. So, that's just one thing. Also, the systems, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing systems, and just are falling apart, a lot of them. Our committee members saw some examples of some underground water pipe that had been just removed recently from Jackson Elementary School when they went out there, and had a pretty significant impact on the committee itself. Our maintenance folks went out there and were showing them around, and I think to the extent that we might offer to do the same with our community, I think would be a good idea, because once they see these buildings, personally, I think it will change their mind.
Great, thank you. I too want to commend the committee's work. I think that they did an incredible job taking a whole lot of information, 300 and some pages, and synthesizing it over a relatively short period of time, given that we've all been looking at these projects and studying them over time and coming up with what I believe to be a really strong recommendation that is equitable and does touch all schools and all parts of our district. I know the high school is getting a lot of conversation, and I also appreciate the comments tonight that were said on the high school. I think what really stands out to me is this does not alleviate our need for a new high school. It's just we actually, and I want to clarify, it's actually been 3 failed bonds with a high school on them. And the one time in 2016 where we did have success on a bond, we actually almost simply removed the high school and brought the amount of the bond down significantly, and that bond passed. And I see a pattern here again where we're being conscientious about the tax dollars and the tax rate, and have reduced the amount of bonds since last time, which I think is also, it's a very difficult thing to do when there are so many worthy projects and other items that we would love to be able to include, but it is very mindful of taxpayers, and I appreciate that. And I also really like the 36 classrooms that get built throughout the district. I think having been through 1.5 kind of boundary revisions, it's not something a district ever wants to have to go through. It's necessary at times with enrollment patterns, but if you can avoid it and keep students at their home school and close to where they live, that's, I think, always preferred. And even adding that additional elementary school, we just went through the South End a whole bunch of boundary changes. I can't remember. I think almost every school, elementary school south, was impacted, and that would be another situation if we include that other elementary school. So that's something I'm just keeping top of mind. And then lastly, I just want to say that long ago, this district, and it was before my time, made a commitment to STEM education throughout our entire district. We chose not to do magnet STEM programs or particular schools and give every student that opportunity. And as I look at those survey results now, I just am so appreciative of that vision many, many years ago to be able to put robotics in every single school. And then with these STEM high school programs, house them at every single high school, not just 1 or 2 high schools. So thank you to those who had that vision early on. So I think that's all my comments and questions. Thank you.
I have several comments and questions. First, I, again, just want to do a personal thank you to the committee because several of you came to speak to us in August, which really helped because I was we must have a high school, and you really helped me understand and appreciate why not a high school, how you made your journey, and I really do appreciate that, and then coming and taking the time again tonight. That's a large commitment, and I really appreciate it. But Mike, I want to clarify 2 things. The new classrooms are both for growth as well as K-3 class size reduction. Is that correct?
I would say that new classrooms can handle growth that occurs for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
I could point to, over the last 10 years, 3 major factors that have produced the need for more space. One of them is the conversion of half-day kindergarten to full-day. Another one is K-3 class size reduction, and then the third one is the ever-present growth. So new classrooms will accommodate more students, and we need more space because of a variety of factors.
Okay, thank you. And then a second question, when we put the pathways on the 2018 bond with some unanswered questions, are those questions maybe have they been answered of students being able to choose them and being bused to them, as well as will they become, say they want to do aeronautics, will they become a Cascade student, or will they spend half the day at Cascade like some of the Running Start kids? Have those things, because that was a lot of our questions with the 18 bond that I felt like people couldn't get a grasp of how it was going to work in order to support it. And so I'm just concerned now, do we know the work, how it's going to work?
I'm going to give a brief answer. I was going to build it into the presentation, and I thought that would add another half hour to my presentation. So, we are working on that, and I'm looking at Dana. Dana has been working on it with transportation folks and her staff, and we will have some information soon on this. I do not believe that we've landed on what the answers are, but we're definitely working on it.
Okay.
And we'll have some more affirmative, clear information about what our plans are related to those soon.
Okay.
By October
pretty
8th.
quick. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Then the next thing.
We'll have it by the 8th.
Yeah, thank you. Looking at your graph too, I do believe that the boundaries, it needed to be done, because even if we did not do that and we opted to put the high school on here and it passed, all those portables would have to go into Jackson while that high school was being built. So I appreciate the boundary committee's work as much as this capital fund work. And then I just want to I'm going to end with something very positive, I think. A friend of mine's son is a Cascade freshman and a Boy Scout, and had to interview a public official. So she chose me because we've been friends for a long time. Very, very shy boy, and was having difficulty getting his words out of what he needed. And I said, so why do you really need to meet with me? Well, we have to figure out with the boundary revisions, I'm being asked what could be my role in that at my school. I said, okay, so that's what the Boy Scout question is that. And he said, yes. And I said, well, look at your Boy Scout values. You will now have Gateway kids coming into Cascade. And you've always had Evergreen and Eisenhower kids. How do you not make those Gateway kids other? And how do you use the values of Boy Scouts to do that and to welcome them and to make them know that they are Cascade kids? And I think he took that, and it was just, and I hope he took that, because I think that that's, it's outside of this bond, but it is the boundaries and it is our kids. But just that a young man was being charged with what could he do for that boundary, and I took that as a charge for him to use his values. So
Yeah.
thank you, and thank the committee.
Thank you.
I'll defer to my colleague.
My deepest appreciation to the bond committee for the work they put, and even the staff for strategically thinking the makeup of the bond committee so that the feedback given added that much heft to it. That's all.
Thank you.
That was big for me. Thanks. So I really appreciate that.
It was very interesting to hear from the three people from the committee and how their views on the high school and the bond in general changed. And thank you for the presentation and the committee for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Amazing presentation. I have trouble making presentations that are like 15 pages long, and yours was truly amazing. That was probably a lot of information just to put on many, many slides, but thank you.
Thank you very much.
I had a question. I'll go. And then I'll let you, have Director Lassane speak. So these are probably questions I should have asked at the retreat, but they've just surfaced. So the student information system upgrades of like $1.7 million. Isn't that more of a capital levy sort of item?
It could be. Definitely if it's not funded in this bond, it would certainly show up in the levy package.
But the logic to put it in here was urgency or?
Yes, it was urgency and timeliness, I think.
And in looking at the high schools, I was just wondering, were there any needs identified at Sequoia that were not included in the bond package?
I'm just thinking back on all the material that we provided. I don't remember significant investments in facilities at Sequoia that didn't, we didn't put anything that I can think of on the bond.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the details, but
I mean, my visits to Sequoia, everything looks to be in great order, but it just occurred to me that I didn't really hear any conversation about Sequoia. And then with the redistricting, the parking at Everett High School, I think is going to become an issue. Were there any thoughts of trying to build parking lots or anything like that? We don't have land.
no serious discussion about that.
Okay.
No.
Maybe next bond, huh? And just lastly, one of the committee's recommendation was to not go for the maximum bond size, but I wasn't really clear on the reasons why, because we could and maintain a flat tax rate, correct? Go for the 400 million, sorry. 400 grand, yeah.
I think one of the comments I remember hearing is that they thought it would be a good selling point for the voters to be less than the previous bond that failed.
Okay.
So the previous bond that fails was like 320.
Right.
So this is 317.
So this is a little scaled back.
That was one of the comments. I'm sure there are probably other perceptions, other comments.
Yeah, I think it does send a good message. I guess I will just mirror other comments in that I think this is a wonderful recommendation, mainly from an equity standpoint. And I think that's very important to be able to sell it to our community. And I think all of our students do deserve decent and up-to-date facilities, you see the pride on students' face when you go to a new building. You know, it really does change the game when you're in nice facilities, and our students and staff definitely deserve that. So I also was thinking we needed a new high school, living in the South End, seeing the crowding, but I'm convinced that this is a really great recommendation, and the high school need is there, but it will be dealt with at another time. So I think the boundary line changes will take care of that issue for now. Director Lassane?
I do want to thank the committee for the work that they did. They took a lot of time and thought in putting together a good package. I do like the package, but I wish it did have the high school on it. I do like the fact that you're looking at our aging facilities and you're providing some upgrade and modernization to those facilities. That's very important because as has been said in the past when I visited North Middle School prior to this renovation and new school essentially, they did feel that, why is it the other middle schools have better facilities than we do? That stigma was there, even though they had a wonderful school. It was a great school. They did some marvelous things there. The disparity is important. We need to clear that. No one should feel that certain areas of the district are given a lot more than other areas of the district. I do appreciate that. I do appreciate the fact that we are looking at ensuring that all of our facilities are top-notch. I do like the idea that we have STEM programs going in there, because this is one of the things that we tried to sell on our 2018 bond. My concern, though, with the STEM programs, I reiterate the questions that were asked from Director Mitchell. We have to make sure that we can inform our families that they can take advantage of any STEM program, no matter where it is in a district, and that we're going to provide transportation. That's very important. And they need to hear that when we present this bond as an opportunity for their students, because they're going to ask those questions. I do wish still that the high school was there, because I do believe, as it is mentioned by one of your committee members, I believe we're kicking the can down the road, and that the cost of a new high school will continue to increase, as will the cost of maintaining our current facilities will still increase. But when we look at the cost of a high school being in the neighborhood of over $215 million, we have to make sure that we do it wisely and do it at the most appropriate time so that we don't incur additional costs. My concern from one of your committee members that made the comment, and I would like to hear some more about that, is they felt it was too north top-heavy as far as equitable projects. What do they mean by that? Because when I look at certain areas in the district, you still had some, the central region, you still had some projects planned. And in the south region, you covered some elementary schools, with Cedarwood getting new classrooms, Woodside getting new classrooms, and even Silver Firs and Mill Creek. So why would you take the tack that you felt it was too north region heavy?
I think if you were to look at the top things on this bond when you see it for the first time, you're going to notice there's 3 elementary schools, and you'll notice that they're all in the north end. Some voters remember from bond to bond what was on each bond and why they voted for it. a lot of my friends don't. They don't remember what was on the last bond or the bond before that or the bond before that. They just look at it for what it is in the moment and they say what's in it for me and what's in it for my district. That's why I was recommending adding 19, elementary 19 construction to this bond. It would show that there's a new construction going in the south end and it would still allow us to keep the replacements in the north end that are so desperately needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I also mentioned too that, I will mention too that most of the growth is in the South region. And so there are a lot of voters in the South region and they may take the same tact as this committee member did. And I'm concerned about that, how it would look. So I appreciate the work that the committee did. I know it was a very hard decision because, yes, I still believe the high school should be on the bond. But I am very happy with the fact that we are fixing our aging facilities and we're trying to make it more equitable for all students, no matter where they're at, that they don't feel that I am given, you know, a less appropriate, a less new school to attend. I do appreciate that very much. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Dr. Mason?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on your comment about the question about being North End heavy and the feedback from the committee member in that, you know, I think she's spot on that people don't remember typically project to project with every bond, but I do know, because I do live in the north end of the district, that there is some sentiment that because the significant growth in our district has been in the south end, that is where the new schools have been going for quite a long time, for many decades. And I think at the end of the day, what my wish would be is that we as voters and as citizens of our community, we focus on the equity of our schools and not who gets what, where, when, because it really, I think in the end, if we probably went through and added up all the dollars that have been spent on new schools in the south end and dollars spent on repairing older schools on the north end, it would probably be pretty close. It's just, you know, to her point, it's in the moment, but I hope that doesn't become a conversation.
Thanks.
All right, so.
Senators, I know. Oh, they spoke.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this will come before us next meeting. Dr. Salzman will give us his recommendation. And I guess in the meantime, if there are obviously further questions, then we can have Mr. Gunn answer those, or Dr. Salzman. But I think we have answered most of the questions, had our dialogue, and are pretty well set to move forward on this. Thank you for a great presentation, Mr. Gunn, and thank you again to the Capital Bond Committee members for their hard work. And we still need you to help us promote this bond, so you can keep on working, please. Did you have something else, Mike? Sorry.
I was just going to say thank you all for your comments. And once again, apologize for the length of the presentation. I should have been shorter, so thank you.
No, it was, you know, I think that it's time extremely well spent. Yeah, we're good. Very important. Okay. We will move on to section 12.0, unfinished business, and there is none this evening, as well as there is no new business. So we will move to section 14.0, upcoming agenda items.
Right. Okay, at the October 1st special meeting, the board will have a study workshop session on student performance and educational effective survey trends. The regular meeting on October 8th, 2019. At that meeting, we will discuss student achievement report, subgroups, and equity targets, summer reading recognition, Washington State's Director Association Legislation's debrief, 2020 bond resolution, and the 2018-2019 CTE program evaluation.
Thank you. So we have no executive session planned this evening, so we are on to section 16.0, adjourn. So this concludes the business before Everett Public Schools directors on September 24th, 2019. Meeting is adjourned.